Welcome to another episode of today's podcast. So, my name is Varin Senthil, a junior at Troy High School, and I am the host of Industry Insights, a podcast about knowing more about people with more, the people who are going to give us more knowledge on the jobs that they're doing and how they got there. I believe this is important because having perspective on different working positions, especially hearing from industry leaders such as Ben Lorenz himself, will help high schoolers have more insights into deciding they want to go for a certain type of job and other positions as well. So, since we have Ben Lorenz here, could you tell us about yourself?
Sure. I am late 40s. It probably shows age-wise. I'm about the same age as your dad. So your dad and I actually met each other about 23 years ago working together at Chrysler at the time, at Dodge Truck. So I am a native of Southeast Michigan, but in my life I lived in various parts of the world. I grew up in Michigan until high school. In high school, I was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I started university in Louisiana. It was a bit of a long story, but finished a Bachelor of Arts in Spanish first while I was studying engineering, and then transferred to a school in Flint, Michigan, that's now called Kettering University. I studied mechanical engineering there. I was in product development, mostly vehicles in different sorts for about a decade before I decided to make a move into sales and business development, which I've been doing then for about the last 12 years. In the process, I had work assignments. I lived in Germany for about 8 years, doing job assignments there, and also completed a master's degree in biomedical engineering in Germany. I was in the startup scene for a good while in San Francisco, in the East Coast of the United States, and Toronto, Canada, before permanently relocating back to the United States and starting with my current company, which is called Synopsys Incorporated, based in Mountain View, California. So the company I'm with then now is based on their slogan is from silicon to software. So Synopsys then is one of the three largest companies in the world that helps companies to design microchips. So another one would be Siemens, and the third one would be called Cadence. But we're one of the three largest. And so the specific area I'm in, however, is not designing microchips. It's in actually simulation software. So taking the microchip product and then simulating, if you've heard the term SoC, for example, SoC is system on a chip. So any type of device that you think of where you hit a couple buttons and it does some type of operation, it'll normally have a microcontroller of some sort in it. And the current state of the art is an SoC, system on a chip. So we can actually simulate that SoC on a laptop computer before the chip is actually made. So when they want certain functionality, we can say, let's take the architecture that's going to go on this piece of silicon, and we'll simulate that then with a PC, which would typically be an Intel I processor, I core processor, right? i3, i5, i7. So with an Intel processor, then we can actually map out any type of silicon architecture and simulate that. So that's my basic background. But what I did then was I had a background in languages. I had a strong background then in mechanical engineering, where I worked for some time, went into sales business development, and then actually made a shift because mechanical engineering in some ways is kind of dying out. The computer software tools that now exist allow a lot of people to do different calculations that before only skilled engineers could have done a couple decades ago. And now people who are using a product, something like, are you familiar with Autodesk Fusion 360? You know this
I'm actually
program?
not.
Oh, okay. It's a CAD program. So for doing designs, but you can do 3D designs. The company actually gives this product out for free. You can get it for free as a student. But not only can you do designs, you can actually run simulations on them. So the things that your father used to do, for example, finite element analysis on big, uh, large, complicated systems, you can now do it on your laptop computer with a product that doesn't cost anything to a hobbyist or a student. So mechanical engineering in the general scheme is somewhat dying. it still needs specialists. It needs people for turbine engines. It needs people for specific types of design work. Think of engineering design or motor design, any types of things like this. Mechanical engineering combined with electrical engineering, mechatronics engineering. But the core or a lot of the core functions that used to be very, very specialized are now becoming very general. So I took a look and said, I want to move out of that mechanical engineering background. I want to get something that's more, say, biotech related. So the biomedical engineering degree, then master's degree, served me very well because it came out of the electrical engineering department. So as I mentioned, I had the languages, I had the mechanical engineering, and then the biomedical engineering running through electrical engineering gave me that electrical engineering piece that was missing in my formal education. So it led then very well into what I'm now doing. So I had this very nice background in a lot of ways, and then with that electrical engineering background, it ends up now I'm working in simulation tools for electrical engineering. So I am responsible for a product called Saber. It's Saber, and it's one of the best products out there for power conversion calculations. So anybody who's designing an electric vehicle, they have a battery pack, they have a battery management system. General Motors is calling this their Ultium technology. If you've heard of this, their Ultium battery technology. They've
Yeah, I have.
standardized okay, all their electric vehicles are standardized on this technology. Well, battery to battery management system to power conversion. So they were running 400 volts in their batteries, and now they're moving up to 800 volts in their electric cars. That's the new movement because if you increase the voltage, you can reduce the current. And by reducing the current, you can use a smaller wire gauge size. So it saves money, it saves wiring harness money. It's just slightly more efficient overall. Well, I'm in a product then that's able to simulate this whole chain from battery all the way through to power conversion to motors and how that drives the vehicle and do distance calculations, for example. How far do we expect this electric vehicle to go based on these component subsystems and so on that are in the vehicle? So education wise and how it's all aligned, it's served me quite well that way. Now I'm responsible worldwide for this product then, business development. Side note, business development in some companies means sales.
Oh, okay.
So in some companies it means strategy, or it can be a mix of both. In my case, in my company, business development is strategy. So it's to say, these are the solutions that we have, these are the problems that customers have, and how do we make those two meet? So what solutions do we provide to fix customers' problems? And how do we do that? How do we position ourselves? Do we use distributors? Do we use resellers? Do we do it ourselves? Do we work with third parties? Is there a company out there, perhaps Altair or Ansys or something like this, that can use our technology as a complementary technology to what they have, and then they promote the product for us? So how do we grow the sales worldwide with this specific technology and product? How do we exactly go about doing that? So this in a nutshell is my job. So I'm in that for power electronics. Then I mentioned the SoC things. How do we simulate systems on a chip? How do we simulate processors? How do we simulate computers? We do all these things as well. So that's at this point what I'm doing.
Okay, that's actually pretty interesting. And thank you for explaining all of that.
Sure.
So, a question I do have is when you were first in like high school or something, what were you originally planning to do when you grew up?
Yeah, when I was in middle school in particular, I wanted to be a scientist. So I liked science a lot. Um, Math was always a bit difficult for me. I was okay at it, but I always liked science. I was very, very fascinated by that. Everything from uh, everything from chemistry to, oh gosh, I don't know, the weather, you name it, anything. So I said I wanted to be a scientist, and I knew the company DuPont, and I said I want to be a scientist at DuPont because I knew DuPont had developed nylon, and so it was a very,
Oh,
very progressive company, and they had a lot of innovation. And so moving forward into high school, then it became more clear to me that there was nothing wrong with being a scientist, but engineering was more of the direction that I should go. So I shifted just a little bit then. So I took that interest of science and technology in order to study engineering
what was the reason that you did that shift from becoming a scientist to an engineer?
because it seemed clear that engineers had more opportunities. So the scientists are more based in the exact specific details and accuracies and precisions of everything, whereas engineers would take those technologies and actually implement them in real life.
So you say currently engineers have a higher, a higher chance of having better job opportunities than a scientist?
I think that's true. I think that's definitely true. Yes, exactly.
Okay. So another question I have is, how did you decide on your first job?
Oh, okay. So where I went at Kettering, it was a co-op program, and so I there was interest in the part of my co-op employer of hiring me, but it didn't fit what I was doing in life at that time because the job would have been in Atlanta, Georgia, and I needed to be in Southeast Michigan. So when I was graduating, I just started looking around for jobs. I wanted to work in the automotive industry. That was really interesting to me, and it fit what was happening in my life really well. So I just started looking around, talking to friends, and found a friend who knew a recruiter who was at a company at the time that was called Porsche Engineering Services. They no longer exist in the US. They were, I think, spun off and purchased by a company called Magna. You probably know Magna. You see Magna quite a bit around Southeast Michigan. I think they might even have something in Troy, if I'm not mistaken. But with Porsche Engineering Services, then they were doing specific projects and assignments and placing people as well at different companies. So they had a neat opportunity for me, and the pay was really good. And it was in the automotive industry, working then at Dodge Trucks, at what was called the old Jeep Truck Engineering Facility on Plymouth Road in Detroit, in the city of Detroit. And so it was one of the first job offers that I had. It paid really well. I thought it'd be really, really interesting. And so I took that.
Is there any advice that you would give to your younger self? And if so, what would it be?
My advice to myself would be not to underestimate my capabilities, first of all, and secondly of all, to contact more companies before deciding on a position. So what I had, I liked. It was good. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it. But I think there could have been other opportunities I could have come across before having accepted that first job.
Okay. So another question I have is, what was the largest surprise you've had in your career?
Largest surprise I've had in my career, I'd say getting laid off. That's a bad surprise, yeah. But it happens. And these are usually things that are outside of our control. When there's a corporate restructure, they'll just take a look at what's working and what's not working. And so I had a situation. I was working in Germany, and they just decided to eliminate the whole entire department. So our job was specifically working with the resellers and what was called the value-added resellers, distributors of specific products that we had. And they decided that they were not going to support those resellers in that way anymore, that the resellers would have to become more self-sufficient. So they eliminated the department worldwide. So that was a bit of a shocker. It was a big surprise, and that required a lot of thought and planning on how to arrange with that, because being from the U.S., Germany was somewhat unfamiliar to me, so I didn't have a network there. I didn't have contacts. So how exactly was I going to approach the situation? What I decided to do then was go to graduate school. So that was how I came out of that. But that was definitely a surprise.
How would you recommend other people to deal with their lives after they get laid off?
Yeah, the first thing, first of all, is just to take a break. So just really, first of all, know and understand that yeah, the job is gone, and that also know and understand that things will be okay. So a lot of our lives revolve around our work, revolve around our career, revolve around our jobs. So when that all of a sudden goes away, there's a hole. And I would say, oh my gosh, what do I do now? So my my first thought on that, what I would suggest is, yeah, just take a break, just take it easy, even if it's only for a couple days. Just enjoy sleeping in for a couple days. Just enjoy not having to go into work for a couple days. Just enjoy some time doing things that you like to do. And once you've done that, even like I said, if it's only a couple days, then start to let people know. It used to be a lot of people were very ashamed of that. They would get laid off and they were very, very, um, yeah, they felt like they had done something wrong, that they made a mistake, and that they're to blame, or that people would judge them or something like this. But nowadays, everybody's used to this. So just start reaching out to friends and family and anyone that you know, because we all know people. We have a network. So one of the best ways to do this nowadays, of course, is LinkedIn. Everybody's on LinkedIn. And so just start searching around there. Just take a look at job openings, take a look at, because it'll show you people you know or who you're connected to that are working in those companies, and start reaching out to them. Just start saying, hey, my company had a reorg, they had a restructure, they got rid of my department or whatever the case may be, and I'm looking for new opportunities. And a lot of times people will say, oh, okay, well, I don't have anything right now, but I know somebody, these companies might be hiring. Or I know this guy, he said something about job opportunities. And so when it's all said and done, there are a couple of things. You can create that network, reconnect with those people maybe you haven't talked to in quite a while, friends, family, contact recruiters, and then also go ahead and make direct employment applications. So once a person's in that situation, there's a question, okay, do I really need to make money right now? Do I really have to have a job? If so, I just need to find a job. In that case, apply directly to the companies. Just find anybody who will give you a job. Maybe your intention isn't to stay there. At the same time, maybe you end up in that job and you like it. You want to be there for quite a while. But if you just need a job, then just take a job. But in the meantime, just never stop looking and searching for what you'd really like to do. And to that point, I would also say, even when you're working, never stop looking. Always look. So don't just let that network start to dry up on you. Always try to keep those contacts going. Always try to get to know new people, network, find out what's happening in the industry. Make sure that you know people and that you, for some, how would I say this? In some way, you always have an idea of what your next step could be, so that you're never caught behind the eight ball.
Okay. Another question I have is how do you balance your personal and your work life?
Yeah, well, in that case, there's an expectation in a company that we work a certain amount of time. But in addition to putting in those hours, there's also an expectation that we have certain accomplishments. Some organizations are better at defining this with their employees than others. But when those expectations are well defined, which is to say, in this quarter, in this half year, in this year, you need to do this and this and this. These are the benchmarks that you have to fulfill. These are the goals you have to accomplish in this period of time. Then when the company is structured that way, the employee nowadays typically has a pretty decent amount of flexibility. Now, in companies that aren't structured so well, maybe they're very, very top down in the sense that they're instructing all the time, telling all their employees what to do on a weekly, perhaps even daily basis. A lot of that flexibility goes away. So you as the employee, you're at the beck and call of your supervisor. You do what your supervisor says. Whatever your supervisor says is what you have to do. If you don't do that according to how they want you to do it, they think you're a bad employee. They don't like you. It's probably not a good place to work anyway. It's much better to be at an organization that is saying, this is what we need you to do, and it's up to you to figure out how to do it, but we're here to help you. Those are really good organizations. So when they are that way, what ends up happening then is there's a time expectation, there's a goal and objective, and what you accomplish expectation. If you're putting in your time and you're meeting those goals and objectives, it's usually not an issue to find time as necessary, even sometimes in the middle of the day, as long as you don't have a meeting, to do what you have to do for your personal life. So I can tell you in my position, I'm on my computer Sunday evening before starting the week, and I'm on my computer Sunday evening before the start of my week to check my schedule. So when is my first meeting on Monday? Is my first meeting on Monday at 8 p.m. or I'm sorry, 8 a.m. or 10 a.m.? When exactly is that? If I have a meeting at 10 a.m., then you know what? I might wake up and I might go exercise for an hour and then officially formally start my day at 8:30. So it's different though if I have a meeting at 8 o'clock. If I have a meeting at 8 o'clock or sometimes even 7 a.m., it could be, then obviously I'm starting my work day at 7 a.m. Perhaps I've got meetings from 8 to noon, and then I don't have anything until 2 o'clock. In that case, I have 2 hours. I could go, for example, exercise for an hour, then during and around the lunchtime. And if I did take more than an hour, then guess what? When all of a sudden my formal work day is ending at say 5:36 p.m., and I'm doing what I want in the evening, I'll go back to work again. I'll take a look at stuff maybe from 9 to 9:30 that evening, that night. So nowadays the companies are offering more flexibility than they ever have before, and they're doing so because it's necessary. It's necessary to retain good talent. It's necessary because I think the organizations understand work-life balance better than they ever have before. And it's just a better work environment all around. I think employees' morale is better. I think that the employees are able to accomplish more. So the short answer to your question then is because I have a flexible work environment, I'm able to meet my personal needs quite well.
Okay. Well, that was pretty insightful, and thank you for that. Another question I have is, how do you think location plays into careers now in this post-COVID world? Like,
Yeah.
locations, workplaces, and all that.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of hybrid work environments now. My situation, for example, I'm 100% remote. I'm 100% remote because in my company, there are only a few of us in Michigan. And of us in Michigan, a couple are on the west side of the state, and a few of us are in Southeast Michigan. We don't have an office. So we work remotely. In our headquarters, there are some thousands of people who are there, but they're not there full time. They're working something like half time in office and half time remote. So to answer your question, I think a lot of companies have come to accept the fact that remote employees are good. And in a lot of ways, this is actually not new because you take a look at a company that might have had a location in New Jersey and they had sales staff, sales support throughout the United States. They might have had a salesperson in Florida, Texas, and California, and Washington, other areas. So those people are always working remotely, right? So for those occupations, that's been nothing new. But what's changed is the fact that now I started our discussion telling you that we can simulate an SOC on a laptop computer. We don't even necessarily need an HPC, a high performance computing cluster anymore. We can do so much stuff. And when we do need that, the cloud has enabled us to get access to HPCs remotely. So a lot of those things then where we had to be on site, we had to have a workstation, we had to have some access to supercomputing. Nowadays, we're getting all our supercomputing through the web, through the cloud. It's quite amazing. So I think the trend for the hybrid work environment is going to continue. I think that the employees gained a lot of leverage against employers, where the employers want everybody on site, they want them on campus, and there are good, legitimate reasons for that. At the same time, the employees have gotten a lot more leverage to say, no, I don't want to come into the office. I want to work remotely because of the flexibility that it offers me. I save all that time commuting. For example, an average commute is about 25 minutes. If a person doesn't commute, they're saving 50 minutes. I can tell you, I work more remotely than I did in the office because I find myself with almost an hour extra time every day by not having a commute. So I think the hybrid model will continue. I think the employers are going to want to try to have the people more in the office as much as possible. When it's all said and done, I think there's going to be a balance that we're already seeing, which will probably be half time in the office and half remote.
Okay. Another question I have is, what's one piece of advice you give someone who's starting out in your career?
One piece of advice.
Or like any piece of advice. It can be multiple.
Okay. I would say, yeah, I think a good piece of advice is depending on what specifically you want to do. You have a couple paths to choose. The MBA path has always been a good path. I never did that. I never did the MBA path.
What path, what does that mean?
MBA, the Master of Business Administration.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of people, I would say first and foremost, get a technical degree. Always start with a technical degree of some sort, whether it's physics or chemistry or engineering or math or anything. Doesn't matter. I'd say always start with a technical degree because it's easy to go from a technical degree to something non-technical. It's much more difficult to go from something non-technical to technical. But I would say then, depending on what it is you want to do, your two basic paths are if you want to go more entrepreneurial route, you don't need that higher education. But if you want to work within an established industry, within established corporations, then go and get a master's degree. whether it be technical or other or MBA, get the master's degree because industry values that a lot in terms of the corporations and what they take a look at when they hire people in terms of check boxes and what they want. A master's degree shows a higher level of education that a lot of employers are looking for. It shows a higher level of skills. So within that formal structure, that's important. But as I mentioned previously, if you're more an entrepreneurial role, maybe it's a smaller company, maybe you just want to go and you just want to work really hard instead of putting that time into the master's degree, then really focus on that work at hand in that smaller company and go that route. So that'd be my advice. You have to take a look, you know, smaller company, larger company, understand that what they want and what they need are different.
Okay. And finally, what's one question you wish I asked you, and how would you have answered?
Hmm. One question I wish you would have asked me. Oh, how about this? Uh, The question would be, what do you think it takes to be successful?
Oh, that's actually a pretty
Okay.
good question.
Yeah. So if you ask me the question, what do you think that it takes to be successful? My answer to that would be it takes the proper educational background, but keep in mind that your educational background is only to provide you skills. So what matters then are your skills. Whether you get those from practice, whether you get those from education, it doesn't really matter. But you have to have those skills first of all. You have to then have the ability to actually utilize those skills within the environment you're working. And so what that means then is you have to find the right environment for you. I can give you a very clear example of that. Some people thrive in the manufacturing environment. Some people thrive high stress. They thrive in, oh no, it's not working. We need to fix it. And that means that we're going to be here for a long time to make sure that we get this up and running again. Other people take a look at that and say, oh my gosh, I would do terribly in that environment. That's not what I want. I need an environment where I'm working directly with a team in an office where I have my desk, perhaps, where I have my computer, I have other things then, and I have a phone and I'm in touch with people on my phone and I'm answering emails and writing emails and asking for information that they might deliver to me in a month. So you have to find that right work environment. So skills, the proper work environment that meets what you want, what you need, and who you are. And then finally, you need to have a place where you're going to learn and have fun. So I think that those are the elements of being successful. Skills, environment, make sure that you can always learn, grow, and have fun.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing your career path and these great insights. I'm sure these questions that you've answered will help a lot of people. Thanks again for participating in my podcast. Have a great day.
You as well, Varin. Thanks.
Thank you.